Hi, here my first question is for Rose. Hi, Rose.
Hello. Bom dia.
Bom dia. First off, we know how this bout came together. First, we thought it was going to be in Curitiba, but it was pretty much said that it was going to be in Brazil. And I remember people were kind of surprised, right? You're the champion and you're coming all the way over here, and then you said that you had other options and that you actually opted to come fight in Brazil. So could you please just explain a little bit why you wanted to come here to do this fight?
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. This is the hometown of MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it saved my life and it's enhanced the lives around me. And so that's just the least I can do is put on a great show for the fans here and just show my appreciation for y'all.
Yeah, like I said, initially we thought there was a possibility of it taking place in Curitiba and it being a stadium show. And I think everybody has kind of heard about the crowd in Brazil. Like, was there ever any pause on your end about coming here and facing the hostile crowd, or were you really just not fazed by that at all?
I think that I always have second thoughts about everything. But this is I do this to challenge myself, and and obviously Andrade has also earned the right to challenge for the belt, and she's also earned the right to fight in her hometown. She's always had to come to the champ, and so I figure I bring the fight to her.
And then coming here, and if you do get this win, do you think that sends an even louder message that you were willing to come here to defend?
That's my choice. I don't know, whatever y'all want to draw from it, that's fine. There's advantages and disadvantages to every situation, so yeah, it's up to y'all.
And then speaking of Jessica specifically, I mean, when we think about her, there are some pretty obvious things about her game that we pick up on. She's obviously very strong. I think Claudia compared her to a flyweight male, in how strong she is, and obviously she's very confident. She can take anyone down. Just asking on your end, if you could just please break her down a little bit, and did you do anything specific to prepare for her in this fight?
Yeah, I think that our styles are very different. I think that we're kind of like yin and yang. And so I'm just really looking forward to the challenge to shut down her strengths and attack her weaknesses. And, I'm going to do what I do in all of my fights. I punch them in the face, take their back, and choke them out.
And you're an underdog coming into this one. You're no stranger to that position, right? But it's a bit interesting considering that you did beat the very dominant champion twice. Did that surprise you at all, and does it bother you at all that you're the underdog coming in?
Not at all. I don't concern myself with the opinions of others. Even though it's definitely overwhelming sometimes. The media can be a lot, and they can spin things the way they want. But I'm very confident in myself. At the same time, I put the pressure on myself. I might be the underdog, but I always consider myself to be the favorite in my own mind.
And the last thing for me, obviously you're going to be focused on this fight. You have a very tough challenger ahead of you. But moving forward, it's an interesting time for your division. There are some people coming up. I think a name that people often brought up is Tatiana Suarez, and now she has a fight with Nina and Sarov. Tatiana.
Who'd you say?
Suarez.
Oh, Suarez.
Yeah. And she has a fight with Ansarov, right? So I think that's kind of a big one for the division. Are you keeping your eye on that fight at all for a possible future challenger?
I might watch that, when I come to it, but, and of course, there's other people that are in the division, and that's always going to be the case, but I have to focus on the task at hand, and that's being here right now.
Okay, now this is really the last one, because I just remember one. Johan, I think it's a name that is brought up often whenever we're interviewing you, and recently we found out that Johan is actually not going to be a flyweight, right? She's coming back down. You won the 2 fights, so the interest in getting a trilogy is really on her, but do you kind of feel on your end that this is a chapter that isn't closed yet, your rivalry with Joanna?
Anything's possible. Like I said, just being here and now in the present, and I wish her the best, and whatever will be, will be.
A question for Aldo. We're happy to see you here, and you're still on the court. When you were in the hospital, what were you thinking that you could have possibly been out at the event? You really want to fight? And these antibiotics, the medicine you took, did that debilitate you at all for your training? First of all, I was pretty sad for what happened. I was training hard for the fight, but I have a lot of willpower right now, and I really want to fight in Rio. I want to be part of this card. The antibiotics and the medicine are part of it, and I hope to get all out of my system training this week, and that I'll be stronger for fight night. Thank you. I wanted to ask Minotauro first. Anderson was on the list to be part of the press conference today. Why didn't he come? Did he have anything happen to him? Anderson had a work appointment that he could not change, so he was not able to make it here. When we scheduled the press conference, he had already had this contract done, and so he wasn't able to come here, and he had to go fulfill that commitment that he had. But he's confirmed on the card. His fight is confirmed on the card. It's one of the main fights of the evening. And we're really happy about this card that we were able to put together in Rio. Putting together Anderson, Aldo, Jessica, Namajunas, and Rogerio. And we have a card here that with 11 confirmed fights so far. And it's a mix of great idols and legends of MMA with the new generation of MMA. I haven't yet received that card. Is there a possibility of Kron Gracie fighting in Rio de Janeiro? We don't know yet, but I can confirm the card. Rose and Jessica Andrade, Jared Cannonier with Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, Aldo with Alexander Volkanovski, Rogerio with Ryan Spann, I hope that I got those names right. I wanted to ask Jose Aldo and also for you, Minotaur. For the past nine years ago, the first UFC Rio was being announced here at Copacabana Palace, and you were here in the press conference. You hadn't even fought for the UFC yet. I wanted you to talk about these last 9 years and the 10th edition of UFC in Rio. What did that all mean, and what did the 9 years mean with your participation, and what do you remember from that press conference? It was a dream for us Brazilians to be fighting at home. And 9 years ago, I remember I had a lot of hair, and today I don't have any more. But it was all very quick. It seems like it was just yesterday. It was me, Shogun, Nogueira, Anderson. It's what we expected at the time, and you know, Jessica's here today representing the new generation. She's going for a world title. I think that's part of MMA growing in Brazil, and it's always a great pleasure to have it at home. I have my family and fans here, and everyone's present, and no one has to travel. So fighting in Rio, that's what comes to mind. So since then, I'm very satisfied with everything that happened. Not just me, but with the UFC itself. The growth that they had here in Brazil, I think I have to congratulate everyone. Aldo said it all. It feels like it was just yesterday that we were here, and we're able to bring the press conference here to Copacabana Palace, which is a classic hotel here in Rio. And the press here in Brazil was really helped us promote it here in Brazil since the first UFC. And the UFC became this great power in sports in Brazil. For Aldo, the injury that you suffered last week, you were in the hospital. I wanted some details for you to explain what happened and what you had to do at the hospital. It was on Monday. I was training wrestling, and I had a little slight burn on my knee, and bacteria started growing on it. And when I got home later, I had fever, and my knee on Wednesday was huge. And then I went to the hospital and was there. And on the first antibiotics that I took, it didn't work. The bacteria was stronger. And on Thursday or Friday, they changed the antibiotics and it worked. On Saturday, I had a little procedure for them to remove everything that was bad in there. And Sunday, I went back home. Now my knee's still a little bit swollen, but I'm already training once a day and thinking about next week and going back to training hard. And I'll be well on fight night. This was 6 weeks before the fight. Did it come to mind that you wouldn't be able to do it? You wouldn't be able to cover it for the fight? I didn't want to stay in the hospital because of that. I wanted to go back and train, but I couldn't put my foot on the ground. I couldn't walk. My knee was too swollen. I thought that I would have to pull out of the fight, but my master that day and my coaches said that we had time, and as soon as they would do the procedure and remove the secretion, it would start to heal quicker. So I'm not 100% right now, but I think I'm going to be able to fight, and I'm going to have to go to the doctor. I was supposed to see him today, but I'm going to see him tomorrow, and he's going to give me his final say. Volkanovski said he didn't want to accept this fight in Rio because his best friend was going to get married that day. He was going to be a groomsman, but he talked his friend into changing. That's also happening to me, man. I'm a groomsman in a wedding, and I had the wedding change because I wanted to fight here. So I think he has to do the same. I was going to fight on the same day as the wedding, so we can be two places at the same time. So I hope that he did the same. What's it like for you, Jessica, fighting for the title here in Brazil? Originally, it was going to be in Curitiba, in your home state. Being in Rio, it's closer to your home, where your friends live. What are you feeling? First of all, I'd like to thank Rose for having this opportunity to fight here in Brazil. I haven't fought here in Brazil for a long time. If this fight was in Curitiba, it would be excellent. I think that's where my masters and my team's history began, and it's where he built our team, and I'm here because of him. So fighting here in Brazil is excellent. Fighting in Rio, it's even better because I'm closer to my family. I'm closer to my teammates, to the girls from PRVT team. We're able to bring the master's mother with us. She was always with us in all the moments in our career, in his career and in mine. So he's going to be able to bring his mom to participate in the event. I'm very happy. I'm very concentrated on it. I know exactly what I need to do on fight night, and I'm very happy to fight for my country at home and to try to get this belt. We're live on Facebook, answering a few questions from the fans. The question for Aldo, is the King of Rio back, and what's the most important moment you had in Rio? Let her know that we never left. We've always been here. We're in a good win streak. And I think the most special moment when I was able to win and jump into the crowd here in Rio, I think that was a marking moment in my career. I saw Ayrton Senna do that, and I think that was a sensational moment that night. My question for Rogerio, I wanted to know, after your last fight, how did that motivate you? And how's it like for you being in this card. I'm going to call you. You're in the old generation of MMA here. But the importance of coming into this 10th edition of a UFC here in Rio. You're a veteran of the sport. You're a legend here in this card in UFC Rio. It's very emotional for me to fight here in Rio de Janeiro. I found on an Instagram of our friend Rodrigo was really young. He was 20-something years old, and he was talking about how he wanted to retire when the sport would become as recognized in Brazil as it was in Japan. That was before we even made it to the UFC. The sport was focused around Japan. And today I see that reality in Brazil. So fighting here at home in Rio, close to my family and my friends, there's a special flavor in that. I'm very thankful about being here on this card with Jose Aldo, Jessica, Anderson, a big card, and being in the midst of that, it's a very fulfilling moment. Yesterday, for Rodrigo, UFC announced Marlon Moraes and Cejudo. We're also expecting Thiago Santos to be fighting John Jones and Amanda fighting Holly Holm. How do you see this moment for Brazil with a few belts that might be coming back to Brazil? We spent some time having a few belts here in Brazil with Jose Aldo and Anderson Silva, and I can say that besides our great idols in sport, we're between generations. A new generation was coming up. Marlon Moraes was coming up. Raoni's coming up. There's a lot of young guys arriving on the scene. Jessica too. Amanda. And Brazil today is a reality. This new generation is here. So we have the old generation with the great legends and idols. But this new generation with Marreta, and that's a reality. In a few days, very soon, we're going to see Brazil with a few belts again, and we're going to be a power again here in Brazil with more belts, and it's happening. First question for Rose. I wanted to know from you, coming to Brazil as a champion, defending your belt in the hostile territory, knowing that the Brazilian fans are known for screaming, "Oh, you're going to die," is that also a psychological test? It's something that not everyone's willing to go through.
I haven't experienced that yet. This place is beautiful, so I would like people to stop calling this place so hostile. Every place is, there's, shit happens everywhere, but it's not, but it's also very beautiful, and I love being here.
Amo estar aqui. Question for Jessica. You already said you don't consider yourself. You'd rather come in as the underdog, even though you're the favorite in the betting odds. Why do you think people see your game plan as the favorite, even though Rose has so many great performances? I always consider myself the underdog. She's the champion. She beat Joanna, and I wasn't able to. So I think that I've evolved a lot after that fight. And I think that people saying that my game plan is better than hers, I don't believe it, because we're all good at something. The only difference is that I'm really strong. I have really good ground game. My stand-up is very aggressive. But Rose has been evolving a lot in her last few fights. So inside the octagon, it's going to be a moment to test ourselves. I'll go in as the underdog. I know inside of myself that I'm the underdog. I fight better thinking that I'm the underdog. Feeling that I have to do my best and show my best in there. That's why I like being the underdog. So Rose is the favorite for me, and I'm going in there to do my work. So inside the octagon, we're both going to show why we're here at this press conference and on fight night in the octagon. My last question is for Aldo. Before the UFC in Fortaleza, you said that you've already had the whole year planned out, that you wanted to have your 3 fights in Brazil and do your last 3 fights in the contract. Now you have a fight scheduled against Volkanovski, and we saw that Anthony Pettis won This is a guy that had a rivalry in the past with you. Is that in your plans to fight him in their last fight? Right now, I'm thinking about Volkanovski. That's what's next. I was very close to fighting Pettis at one point. I don't know why it didn't happen. And there's no way. I think that we can go after the belt in the division. Even my next fight could be. It's all dependent on Max and Poirier. So it's all going to depend on that. So I'm not thinking about fighting Anthony right now. I don't know what weight class he'd be thinking about. But our goal is to always change with each event. So I'm waiting for Max's fight to see what happens. And in the future, we could be the champion. It's going to follow my lap, in reality. I'm going to embrace it and put it to sleep. 2 more questions for Facebook for Minotauro. What's it like fighting in the city that you live in? And is there somebody that you still want to face in the octagon? Can you repeat the question? 2 questions. First question is what it's like fighting in the city that you live, and is there still a fight that you want to have inside the octagon? Fighting here in Rio has a special flavor. When we step into that cage, we can't really hear much because there's a lot of sounds. But when you fight at home and you're able to land a punch and you hear the crowd, it's like in soccer when you're playing at home. The crowd makes all the difference, and I know that it's going to be the difference for me, as it was in São Paulo in my last fight. And a fight that I like to have before my career is over is against Mauricio Shogun. We fought in 2015, and I thought that the result wasn't as it seemed, so I like to have that fight before my career is up. Are you still thinking of retiring this year after the next fight? Yeah, we're following that plan. That's all in mind. We're following it. And in the second semester, I know there's going to be another event in Brazil, so I'm counting on fighting here again. I don't know what the event's going to be, but it could be after this fight in Rio, the UFC is going to be back to Brazil, so that's my idea. Is there a possibility of you renewing your belt for you to fight for the title? Would you accept it? In the last fight against Moicano, we were already talking about that, renewing the contract, but I'm hearing some other proposals. This is the right moment to go through this. Everything's well planned out. We're sitting down and seeing what the best way to follow is. I've done a lot inside of MMA. Now it's the time for Jessica and the new generation to come up and win the belt. But I think the belt's coming to me, so if it comes, I'll accept it, but contractually, I think it's very hard. I have to hear the other proposals that I have. And whichever is the best, I'll sit down with Dede and see which way we'll follow. For Jessica, you're going to be the main event in an event with Aldo and Anderson Silva. What does that feel like? You can't be a bigger dream than that. In 2011, when they were having the best UFC event here in Rio, I was just beginning my career. I didn't even imagine that I would fight on a card with idols like them, and now I'm here, closing out in the main event with Rose for the belt in this amazing card with Aldo, with Anderson Silva, with Nogueira, and many other great names that are coming. For me, it's sensational. I'm going to do my best in there and show that I can really be the next champion, and show that I'm going to represent Brazil very well, as they have in the past. Your last fight here in Rio against Patrick Cummings, you had great camp at Team Nogueira. And you also trained with Flamengo Performance Center. I want to know how you're preparing for this fight now. Do you have that same word or spirit? How's your mind coming in? Camp is full steam ahead. I'm very motivated for fighting here in Rio again. Fighting in Brazil, I think that gives me a bigger sense of responsibility. I'm working a lot on my physical side. I'm 42 years old. It's overcoming something just to be fighting, so I can't leave that to the side. So I'm doing a lot of cardio and physical work to have a great show on the 11th. For Aldo, I wanted to ask you, recently Conor McGregor announced his retirement. If you could talk about that, do you think that he is going to be back to the octagon? Would you like to face him in your last fights? And do you think that he could come back to the octagon after announcing the retirement? Yeah, I heard about his retirement and what he's done and what he's made. If I fought Mayweather and made $80 million, you guys would never see me again. That you can be sure of. But only to come back in here, it's only if it's really worth it. He had a brilliant career in the way that he thought was the best, and he was a great fighter. And if he retires today, and I congratulate him for everything he was able to do in the sport and for growing the sport in Europe and in Ireland. And I think fighting him, I don't think it's going to happen. I think the right time would have been an immediate rematch, so I don't think about him anymore. Everyone always asks about that, but I would fight, but I don't see that fight happening. To follow up on that on Conor, the fact that he retired, and even though you're not planning on facing him, the fact that he's retiring and he's taking away that chance, something that would give you good money, does that upset you? No, that doesn't upset me at all. I'm still young. My dream is to fight boxing, so it's somewhere that I can also make brilliant money. So, do you have any proposals? We're looking into it. I think I've made enough money and had a brilliant career, and every time that I was inside the octagon, I was never thinking about money. I was always thinking about winning and being the world champion. That was always my goal since the beginning. And money is just a consequence. It's like my shadow. I walk and it follows me. So I wanted to fight him more for the honor than for the money. But I think that's not going to happen. But I'm happy with everything that's happening, and I think he is too. And I think he's at the right moment to retire. He's proved everything, and he's correct. Jessica, Rose earlier said that she has the same game plan for you like everyone else, which is, landing shots on their feet and taking you down and submitting you. You're a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. You fight a lot in the gi. You've been training a lot on the ground. How do you see going to the ground in a fight against Rose? How do you think that will play out? How do you see her jiu-jitsu game? Do you see holes in her game that you'll be able to use? I believe that just like me, Rose has studying all of my flaws and where I make mistakes. And in the fight with Joanna, you can see that very well. Joanna was moving very well, and that got in my way, but I've been training that a lot. I'm dedicating myself to that, to not open those holes in the fight. And in terms of the ground, my game has been evolving I'm a very tough brown belt. I fight in a lot of tournaments. I compete in them. I fight against black belts and brown belts. And I've been doing very well in the worlds in São Paulo. I always go and I win, and I always win in my division in the absolute. So I think that I'm very prepared to anything that could happen on the ground or on the feet. So I'm very happy that Rose accepted this fight to fight with me and giving me this opportunity to fight in Brazil. I hope that she gets to see Rio de Janeiro. It's beautiful and wonderful. There's a lot of good things to see. And I think that in the octagon, it's going to be a moment for concentration and for showing what we're good at. And I think that I'm going to be able to impose my game. Aldo, good morning. You won your first fight in Rio, and you jumped in the crowd, and you did the same in Fortaleza earlier this year. Talk about that moment of you jumping into the crowd, and could the crowd here already be expecting that? It's a moment that's not just for me, it's for all the Brazilian fans. I think everyone gets very excited. It's something that I don't even think about. It's just automatic for me. I know that they're going to have intense security here in Rio to not let me get out of the cage, so we'll have to study it and find a hole for me to jump out and run through the crowd. I think that's very exciting to win and jump into their arms. They fight with us and they suffer with us, and they're part of the show. They deserve it. Another question from Facebook, a question for Jessica and Rose. Ronda fought for the belt in Rio, in Brazil, and so did Amanda, and now it's your turn. How important are the female fighters for the growth of MMA in Brazil? I think that the importance to have a woman fighting in Brazil it's an incentive for other women, showing that they can be fighters and they can be whatever they want to be. And fighting in this event and being the main event, it's incredible. We show our abilities and how much we've evolved in a sport that everyone thought was just a men's sport. People thought women would never fight in this sport. So now we're in Brazil with two great, amazing fighters. We've already had great fights here with like Ronda and with Amanda. And we're in an excellent card showing that we're evolving and that we're able to have a great fight and close out the event with a great fight.
Yeah, it's a huge honor to fight here, especially, headlining the card with such great legends like Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, and everything like that. And it is really important for women to not only see that you can pursue a career in fighting if you want. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But it's also important to note that fighting isn't the end all be all. That just practicing martial arts in general is a great lifestyle to have, not just for self-defense, but just your mental and physical and spiritual well-being. And that's something that I want to promote because my fight career is one thing, but I will always be involved in martial arts for the rest of my life.
A question for Aldo, but if Nogueira also wants to reply because he was at the first UFC in Rio. 2011 was a very important year for MMA in Brazil. It was when it started becoming more popular. Was there a moment in your career that you remember that you stopped and thought, man, now it's really big in Brazil and I've become this great character in this sport in Brazil? Is there a moment that you think of? I think it's fighting here in Brazil. That's when we see the sport being consolidated here in Brazil. And we stop to think about that when people stop you and ask for pictures, not in the fight, but outside of it. I was in church and this older lady asked me, and I thought that she thought I was a soccer player, but in that moment I saw that the sport was growing, and we're doing good work, and it was going to get bigger than we had already got to. So this moment of seeing everyone here and the UFC coming back to Rio, it's becoming something normal to have it in Brazil, and it makes me happy. And I hope that with Jessica winning the title, it's going to be something important to consolidate MMA in Brazil. I hope that the new generations can also get there. Marreta's fighting John Jones, and I hope he can win. Marlon Moraes is also someone, and I hope that MMA in Brazil is strong.